Marty is still mid-sentence about the girl on the fourth floor. Something about how nobody remembers her name and how that's kind of the point when you hear it.
Not loud. A scrape, low and unhurried, the specific weight of something dragging itself along tile rather than walking on it. It comes from the hallway, past the stairwell door that doesn't open even though the handle turns fine. Nobody else reacts. Chad's narrating the lockdown alert to nobody in particular, doing the voice he does for movie trailers. Amanda's arguing with her phone, which has apparently decided 4G is a personality trait it no longer wants. Drea's watching the hinges of the stairwell door like they might confess something. You're the only one facing the right direction, and you knew. Before it happened, in the specific, unbothered way you've stopped questioning tonight. The same steady arithmetic that had made you count the dead bulbs on the tree without meaning to. That the second scrape would come exactly 4 seconds after the first. And it does. You cross to the lounge door. The little reinforced glass window in it is scratched with 3 years of boredom, but there's a clean strip near the bottom where someone's forehead has rested against it more than once. You put your eye there. The hallway is fluorescent and empty in the specific way empty halls in old dorms are empty, which is to say, not quite. Most of the doors are shut. The heating system ticks somewhere in the walls like a slow pulse, count-matched almost, but not quite, to the scrape's rhythm. And near the far end, past where the light gives out into a kind of gray nothing the fixtures don't reach, something is moving away from you. It's low to the ground, girl-shaped, or shaped like the idea of a girl seen from a distance and then unseen. You get maybe a second and a half of silhouette, dragging something behind it that makes the second scrape, before it passes into the dark stretch of hallway, and the dark stretch simply doesn't give her back. You don't call out. You don't open the door. You watch the space where she isn't anymore for a 3 count, the way you'd watch a held breath, and then you step back. What? Amanda says, not looking up from her phone, the word flat with the specific unconcern of someone who has decided the world will wait for her Wi-Fi. Something's in the hallway, you say.
Marty stops talking.
For the first time all night, actually stops, mid-story, mid-syllable, and looks at the door like he already knew which direction you'd be facing when you said that, like he'd been waiting to see if you'd noticed too. He doesn't ask what you saw. He doesn't ask if you're sure.
Okay, he says, slow, careful, the pause before it longer than the sentence itself. Was she going towards something or away from it?
Nobody else seems to notice that's the wrong question to ask first. You ease the door open a few inches. The hinge doesn't creak. Someone oiled it at some point. Some resident assistant with more foresight than the rest of the building deserved. And the gap gives you the strip of hallway you already know, fluorescent and humming. Except now there's something new on the tile where the shape was dragging itself a minute ago. A smear, dark and wet-looking under the buzzing light, maybe 3 feet long, tapering at both ends like it was made by something being pulled rather than something walking. The same unhurried weight as the sound you'd heard through the door, now written on the floor instead of the air. And beside it, laid out with a precision that doesn't belong anywhere near the mess of the smear, a row of small steel instruments. 6 of them, and you count them without meaning to, the same arithmetic that already knew how many seconds passed between scrapes. Evenly spaced, like place settings. You can't get the door open far enough to see them clearly, but the gap gives you enough. A long-handled something that could only be forceps, a blade too short and too curved for any kitchen drawer. Clinical wrong, all 6 of them. The kind of wrong that has a case they usually live in, felt-lined, and a person trained to use them without flinching. What do you see? Drea, behind you, not loud, already moving to flank the door without being asked. She left something. You don't finish it the way you'd normally finish it. You know exactly what the instruments are for before you've cataloged what they look like, and that arithmetic arrives in you like a held breath instead of a thought, and you let it stay unsaid. Marty appears at your shoulder without you having heard him cross the room, and he looks down at the row through the gap for a long 4 count before he says anything.
Okay, but she didn't drop those.
Pause. Longer than the sentence needs.
Somebody set those down. That's a stopping point. That's not a scene, that's a break in the middle of a scene.
He says it the way he'd mentioned the coffee machine was out of filters. Cool. Love that. Very comforting. Amanda says from the couch, not getting up, which is its own kind of tell. Is anyone going to say the word scalpel, or are we all just gonna vibe around it? That's a wound kit. Drea says, flat, no drama in it, because drama would slow down the part of her that's already counting exits. Field triage, or worse. Somebody was using those on somebody. This is the part where the guy finds the tools and goes, huh, weird, and picks one up. Chad's phone light swings up over your shoulder, throwing your own shadow long down the hall. We are not doing that. That's how the guy with the good jawline becomes a community bulletin board memorial. You pull the door shut instead. Not slammed, just closed. Deliberate. The latch catching with a small, definite click. And the 4 of you stand there a moment in the lounge's bad light, listening to the heating tick through the walls at a rhythm that isn't matching anything anymore. And you already know, the way you knew about the 4 seconds, that the row of instruments will not be there the next time anyone looks. You hear it before Amanda does. A wet give in the rhythm of the vent grate above the couch. Not a rattle so much as a pulse, like something is testing the give of the metal the way a tongue tests a loose tooth. Amanda's already halfway to standing when the second pulse comes. Slower, longer. And you realize the sound isn't metal shifting against metal. It's softer than that. It's the sound of something without a fixed shape deciding how much of itself will fit through a 9x12 rectangle. Okay, nobody move the couch, Chad says, already moving the couch, dragging Amanda's end sideways with both hands like the 6 inches of clearance will matter. This is the part where the found footage camera guy sticks his head up to look, and that's the last we see of found footage camera guy. Rule 1, you don't look up into the hole. I wasn't going to look up into the hole, Chad. Amanda is on her feet now, sweater sleeve twisted in her fist, eyes on the grate like it might apologize. Obviously, I wasn't going to look up into the hole. The grate bows. Not rattles. Bows. A slow, domed flex in the sheet metal like pressure building from beneath. And something dark blooms at the seam between the slats, seeping rather than dripping, patient about it. The same unhurried wait as the smear on the hallway tile. Like whatever this is already knows how to take its time. Drea is already between Amanda and the couch without seeming to have crossed the room to get there, and she says, low, everyone back toward the door. Not running, walking. And the room obeys her before it decides to.
Marty hasn't moved.
He's looking up at the vent with the particular stillness he gets when something in his head has already finished the sentence everyone else is still assembling. And when he speaks, it comes out slower than the room wants it to.
It's not coming down here.
Pause. The long kind.
It's listening for which one of us stops being scared first. I think that's the whole thing it's doing.
He says it the way you'd mention that it might rain later, and nobody stops to ask him how he knows, because asking would mean admitting you believe him. You watch the seam, and you already know. The same arithmetic that counted 4 seconds between scrapes and 6 instruments laid out on the tile, that the dark stain will not fall. It will hold there, glistening, thickening at the edge, and then the pulsing will simply stop, all at once, the way a held breath releases when the danger has decided it isn't hungry tonight. It happens exactly that way. The grate stills, the room does not. That's it, Chad says, too fast, the words tripping over each other. Okay, that's a fake out. That's classic second act fake out. That's how you survive. You don't relax after the fake out. Chad! Amanda's voice has gone flat and careful. Sit somewhere that isn't under the vent. Nobody argues with that. The grate doesn't fall so much as it's discarded. Flung sideways off the couch cushion where it lands with a flat clang nobody has time to process, because the thing that comes down after it is already standing. Not landing and rising. Standing. The way a marionette stands when someone yanks the string taut, joints locking into place a half second after the body's already upright. It's the size of something that shouldn't have fit the vent it came out of, wet along one side like it's still shedding the shape of the ductwork, and the sound starts before you can find where its face is supposed to be. A fast, precise clicking, metal on metal, rhythmic as a metronome set too high, coming from a dark seam where a mouth should sit. Okay, that's not a jump scare. That's a whole guy. We go now. Not that one, the other stairwell, the one on the far end. That's how you survive. And he's already moving, which is the first time tonight his mouth and his feet have agreed on anything. Drea doesn't run so much as convert the room into a route. A hand flat on your back, not shoving, just correcting your angle by 4 degrees toward the far door, the long stretch of hallway that means twice the running, and it's the most efficient touch you've felt all night. Amanda's ahead of you, sweater sleeve still knotted in her fist, and she doesn't look back even once, which you understand is its own kind of discipline. The clicking accelerates. You hear it change register, the rhythm tightening, gaining a texture like instruments being sorted by size, fast, impatient. And you know, the way you know things you haven't been told, that the sound means it's decided which one of you is closest. It's Marty, who hasn't run yet, who's turning at exactly the pace of someone checking a departure time. And then he runs too, and it's not slow, it's just correct. Like his body budgeted the exact amount of urgency the moment required, and no more. You hit the stairwell door a half step behind Amanda, Drea's palm already flat against the push bar. This one gives, immediately. No argument in the hinges the way the other door had. Chad already through and holding it, and the clicking behind you doesn't stop, but it does recede, fractionally, like something recalibrating rather than pursuing. The door slams. 4 bodies against a stairwell wall, breathing too loud in a space built for echo. Okay, Chad says, chest heaving, grinning with too many teeth. Okay, that's the part where we regroup. That's Act 2. That's classic Act 2.
Marty, still catching his breath, says quietly, "It wasn't trying that hard."
The stairwell smells like paint and cold concrete, and everyone's breathing too loud to hear anything below, which is its own kind of relief. That's when you see it. Between the 3rd and 4th floor landings, set into the wall exactly where the laminated fire evacuation map insists there is nothing but load-bearing concrete, a plain door. No stencil, no floor number, no little illuminated exit placard, no institutional beige, nothing that matches the building's grammar at all. It's standing open half an inch, the gap dark enough that it doesn't look like it leads to a hallway. It looks like it leads to less than that. No draft moving through the gap, no temperature change at all, like the dark on the other side hadn't decided yet whether it counted as air. Okay, Chad stops walking backward up the stairs long enough to actually look, and something in his face recalibrates. That's a door that shouldn't be a door. I've seen this. 3rd act, someone finds the door that's not on the blueprints, and that's usually where they keep the... He doesn't finish it, which, for Chad, is its own kind of alarm. It's half an inch open, Amanda says, not a question, flat like she's cataloging evidence. Doors don't do that on their own. Obviously someone's been through it. Or something. Drea's already checking the angle of the stairs above and below, weighing it the way she weighs everything. Cost, exposure, time. One hand resting flat against the railing, like she's already calculated how fast she could vault it if the math changed. We don't know what's on the other side of that, and we know exactly what's behind us. She says it like a fact, not a vote, but she doesn't move past it either. Her eyes stay on the gap.
It wasn't on the map last time either.
Marty hasn't said anything yet.
He's looking at the door the way you'd look at a word you already knew was coming in a sentence someone else was still saying. Nobody clarifies which last time he means, and he doesn't offer to.
I don't think it's hiding. I think it's convenient.
He says it plainly, like weather, and goes back to watching it. You don't say what you're thinking, which is that you knew, before you rounded the landing, exactly how wide that gap would be. 1/2 inch. You knew it the way you know the clicking below hasn't stopped, only slowed, waiting to see if anyone opens something first. The door doesn't move. It doesn't need to. It's already done the only thing it came here to do, which is be found by the right person at the right moment, standing on the wrong landing. And the arithmetic in you, the same arithmetic that counted seconds and instruments, doesn't offer an answer this time. It just goes quiet, waiting for you to open it. The door doesn't creak. It just stops resisting, the way a held breath stops being held, and you're through before anyone can vote on it. The room is narrower than it has any right to be, tiled floor to ceiling in institutional white gone the color of old teeth, steel counters bolted down the center like the room was built around them rather than the other way around. Cabinets line the far wall, glass fronts cracked in the same diagonal pattern on every single door, and behind the cracks, jars. Dozens of them. Some labeled in a careful clinical hand, some with the labels peeled back to show older labels underneath, and underneath those, nothing, just the shape of a word that used to be there. And in the corner, slumped against the tile the way something rests when it doesn't need to breathe, is a figure in a lab coat gone stiff and brown at the collar. Where the face should organize itself into features, brow, socket, the small, furious geography of a human face, there is only skin. Smooth, finished, like it was never given the instruction to have eyes at all. It starts to turn its head toward the door. "Nope," Chad says, already backing into Amanda. "Nope, that's the reveal. That's the thing they don't show you until 40 minutes in. We are early. We are so early." "It doesn't have eyes, Chad," Amanda says, flat, like she's reading it off a form. Obviously, it's not looking at you specifically. It's looking at the sound, which you're currently making. A lot of. Drea doesn't say anything for a second. She's already measuring the room. Counter to counter, door to door, the 4 feet of open tile between the figure and the nearest exit that isn't the one you're standing in. "There's a second door," she says, eyes already on its hinges, the same way they'd gone to the hinges of the first door, 3 floors and what feels like a lifetime ago. "Behind it. We don't run past it, we go around." The head keeps turning, slow, unhurried, a machine finishing a rotation it started before anyone walked in. No urgency in it at all, which is somehow worse than urgency would be.
Okay, but it's not hunting, he says. Long pause folded into the sentence, like he's still deciding whether to say the next part. It's cataloging. There's a difference. Another pause, shorter. Same as the door was. Convenient doesn't mean safe. It just means somebody wants you to think it is. He says it the way you'd mention the time.
You already know what the room is going to smell like before the door finishes swinging shut behind you. Formaldehyde and something underneath it, copper sweet, the smell arriving 1/2 second after your memory of it. And you don't say anything about that, because nobody would know what to do with it if you did. The figure's blind face finishes its turn and settles, aimed now at the 5 of you standing in the doorway like it's waiting to be introduced. Introductions in this building, you're starting to suspect, only ever run one direction. You go around the counters and hit the second door with both hands before anyone can suggest a vote. You'd already counted the steps to it, the same quiet arithmetic that's been running under everything else tonight. 4 seconds ahead of your own feet. Because voting is what people do when they still think there's time for it. The door gives. What's on the other side does not. Loading dock. Concrete floor slick with something that isn't rain, cold enough to bite through your shoes. An overhead rail runs the length of the hallway, hung with meat hooks gone the deep orange-brown of old iron, swinging very slightly, though nothing moved them. And under the diesel and concrete smell of the place is something sweeter, coppery, the same smell that arrived half a second late in the room you just left. Between two of the hooks, unfolding out of a gap that shouldn't have held anything upright, is a shape too tall for the ceiling it's standing under, joints stacked wrong, elbows where knees should articulate. It's holding a rod, 6 feet of rusted metal ending in a barb like a fish hook built for something larger than fish, and it drags the point across the concrete once, unhurried, and the screech of it goes through your teeth like a drill bit. "Okay," Chad says, and for once he doesn't finish the sentence with a survival tip. Okay, that's not a person-shaped problem, Em. That is a... Drea, tell me that's not... It's not chasing, Drea says, already backing you all toward the doorframe, eyes on the rod, not the face. There isn't a face to put eyes on, just a wet, dark seam where a face would organize itself. It's placing. Watch where it puts the point, not where it stands. Amanda doesn't move fast. She moves correctly, which, in this hallway, amounts to the same thing 1 second later. Obviously, it already knows where we're going to be standing. That's a fun detail to have learned. Drea. Door. The barb comes down where Chad's foot was half a step ago, and the screech it makes against the concrete when it doesn't find him is worse than the one before. Higher, almost disappointed.
Marty doesn't run. Marty looks at the swinging hooks like he's counting them. It knew he'd flinch left, he says, quiet, not to anyone specifically. People always flinch left when they're right-handed and scared. It's not guessing.
Nobody answers him. Nobody has time to. You get the door shut on the second try, Drea's shoulder against it, the frame juddering once as the rod finds the wood a half second too late and buries an inch of barbed steel through the panel at chest height, close enough that Chad makes a sound he will deny making later. The metal shrieks free again on the other side, already withdrawing, unhurried, because it isn't done. It's recalculating. You're all breathing in the tiled dark of the specimen room again, the eyeless thing still slumped in its corner, indifferent to the racket, and the hole in the door is letting through a narrow blade of light and the smell of rust that isn't rust. You count the seconds until the shrieking on the other side fades to nothing, out of habit more than choice, and you don't like the number you land on. "That's not Act 2, Chad says, hoarse. "Whatever that was, we skipped ahead." The door holds behind you, for now, and Drea doesn't wait to see if that changes. "Down," she says, already moving, one hand flat against your shoulder blade the way you'd steer someone through a crowd, except the crowd is a stairwell, with a screeching thing possibly still deciding whether the door counts as an obstacle or an inconvenience. You take the stairs 2 at a time. This is the part where we find the thing that explains the other thing. That's always how it works. We find like a diary or a... And then he stops narrating, because the landing between floors is not empty. The bones are swept into a pile against the wall, not scattered, not fallen, arranged, the way you'd sweep sawdust after cutting something down to size. Small. Too small and too many for one animal, too clean for anything that died recently, pale as chalk and catching the emergency light with a soft, waxy sheen that bone shouldn't have. "Obviously that's not deer," she says, quiet, like volume might wake something. "Deer don't have..." She doesn't finish it. Nobody needs her to. Marty crouches at the edge of the pile without touching it, head tilted, and for a long moment he doesn't say anything at all. which, from Marty, is its own kind of statement.
Okay, but
He says finally.
they're sorted. Look, small to smaller. Somebody's keeping
He searches for the word and lands somewhere wrong on purpose.
a collection.
He looks up at you specifically, not at Chad, not at Drea.
You knew they'd be here. Before we came down.
He says it the way you'd note the weather, and then he stands back up like the sentence never happened, and nobody else seems to have caught it. You don't answer.
You don't have to.
The arithmetic in you counts that too. Files it next to the seconds and the instruments. One more thing you didn't ask for and can't put down. Moving. Not a suggestion, not a question. Just wait, the kind you don't argue with. You go past the pile hugging the far wall, close enough that the smell reaches you. Dry, mineral, old. And far enough that nothing reaches back. The stairwell keeps descending below the emergency lighting into a dark that the exit signs don't reach. Past a floor marker that reads 1, and another, lower still, that doesn't read anything at all. Just blank steel where a number used to be. Somewhere above you, muffled through 2 floors of concrete, something drags metal once against a door that is not built to hold. You keep going down anyway, because up was worse, and down is, for now, still just a guess. You keep going down, past the blank floor markers, past landings that have stopped pretending to have numbers at all, until the stairwell simply runs out of any further place to go. Concrete underfoot, and a door ahead marked finally with a real placard, ground floor, exit. It should smell like the parking lot. It should smell like outside. Drea reaches it first and doesn't hesitate on the handle the way she hesitated on the last one. This door gives, easy, no argument in the hinges at all, which, by now, everyone should know better than to trust. The door swings on a hinge that doesn't creak, which is somehow worse than one that does, and the room on the other side is not what any of you were braced for. No blood-slick tile, no screaming, just shelves. Floor to ceiling, wall to wall, running the whole depth of the utility room in neat industrial ranks, and on every shelf, labeled in small precise handwriting on little folded cards, things. A shoe. A retainer in a plastic case, a driver's license laminate gone cloudy with age, a watch stopped at 2:14, hundreds of them, thousands maybe, sorted by a logic none of you can see and don't want to. You count 3 shelves deep before you make yourself stop, the same quiet arithmetic that's been running under everything else tonight, and this time it doesn't tell you anything you want to know. And in the center of the room, back to the door, a tall figure is reaching up to set something new on an already crowded shelf, adjusting it half an inch to the left with the unhurried care of a man straightening a picture frame in his own home. He stops, not startled, interrupted. His head tilts, cataloging the sound of the door the way he'd catalog everything else in this room. And then he turns, slow, like there's no version of this where speed matters, because he's already decided how it ends. Okay, Chad says, and his voice does the thing it does when he's trying to be funny and missing by exactly the width of the room. Okay, this is a lot of Beanie Babies, my dude. We're gonna need to talk about... He's still talking when the figure crosses the distance between them. It isn't a run. It's barely faster than a walk, and that's what makes it impossible to process in time. Nobody's body finishes deciding to move before his hand closes around the back of Chad's skull, fingers spread wide the way you'd palm a basketball, and turns his head with a slow, deliberate, almost gentle pressure, like adjusting that same picture frame. Chad's mouth is still open on the last syllable when the tool comes up from his belt. A thin, bone-handled awl, the kind of thing you'd use to punch a hole for a hinge, and drives up under his jaw in one clean motion, through the soft floor of his mouth, through the roof of his palate, into the space behind his eyes. There's no scream. There's a wet click and a long, involuntary shudder that runs the whole length of Chad's body, and his hands come up to the man's wrist too late and too slow, fingers scrabbling at a grip that has already stopped needing to hold anything, because Chad is no longer holding himself up. Blood threads down out of his nose in 2 even lines, startlingly dark, and his eyes, still open, still almost looking at you, go flat and glassy the way a fish's do on ice. The figure lowers him without dropping him, sets him down against the shelf's base with the same care he showed the thing he was arranging when you walked in, and crouches, and starts working something small and precise out of Chad's mouth with 2 fingers, turning it over once in the weak fluorescent light to check it against something only he can see. Nobody screams. There isn't time to have decided to. Somewhere under your ribs, the part of you that has been counting all night, seconds, instruments, bones, reaches for the number that was supposed to come before this, and doesn't find one. That's new. That's the part that scares you most. Drea has your sleeve in a fist so tight it will bruise, already hauling you backward through the door, and Amanda is saying Chad's name once, flat, like a question that already knows there's no answer coming. And Marty just stands there a half-second too long, staring at the shelf like he's looking for a card with a name on it he already knows, before Drea's other hand drags him back too, and the door swings shut on its silent hinge, sealing the room, and the shelves, and the man who is still, unhurried, finishing his work. The service door bangs open into cold and the smell of wet concrete, and underneath it, faint but unmistakable, that same coppery sweetness that had arrived half a second late in every room before this one. And for 1 full second, it's relief anyway, because relief doesn't wait for the arithmetic to finish its sentence. Night air, an actual sky, a loading bay stacked chest high with cardboard gone soft and gray with damp. Behind you, the utility room's hinge doesn't creak even now, even swinging shut on what's left of Chad, and nobody says his name, because saying it would mean stopping. And stopping is the one thing none of you can afford. Marty's already scanning the bay the way he does everything, half a beat behind the room's actual danger, and dead on about some detail nobody else has clocked yet.
That box.
He says, not loud, almost conversational.
That box is doing something boxes don't do.
And he's right, because the stack against the far wall is sagging in a way gravity doesn't explain, folding inward like something inside it is deflating and reinflating in slow tidal pulls, and the cardboard along one seam has gone black wet and split. Nobody votes on a direction. You just run, all of you, boots skidding on concrete slicked with runoff, aiming for the roll-up door hanging a foot open at the far end, a slice of parking lot and sodium light beyond it. This is the part where the plan is out. Only out! Don't look at the box, don't look at what's coming through the tear in its side, pale and ringed and too long for the space it's leaving. Don't look! Marty looks. Not out of courage. Structurally, the same reason he noticed the box in the first place, his head turns half a second before his feet do, cataloging the thing dropping wet onto the concrete behind him, segmented like a spine turned inside out, the size of a grown man laid end to end, its pale hide sheened in the same fluid that soaked through the box. And that half second is the whole of it. His foot goes down wrong, ankle rolling on a flattened square of cardboard slick as an oil slick, and he goes down hard on one knee with a grunt everyone hears and nobody turns back for, because turning back is how the count goes from 4 to 0 instead of 4 to 3. The thing doesn't chase so much as arrive. It moves in a boneless ripple, segments telescoping and snapping forward faster than legs would carry it, and it's on him before he's fully up, a loop of its ringed body lashing around his calf and cinching tight enough to buckle the joint sideways with a wet crack.
Marty screams, the first sound he's made tonight that isn't observational. isn't to beat off from everyone else's fear, just raw and immediate and completely, finally synced with the room.
The front of it isn't a head, it's an opening, a radial seam that splits into 6 wet petals lined with backward curving hooks the color of old teeth, and it presses that seam flat against his stomach through his hoodie like it's listening. And then it isn't listening anymore. It punches inward, not a bite, a boring, segmented ridges rotating in place as the hooks drag his shirt and the skin beneath it inward in a spiral. And his stomach wall gives with a sound like a wet paper bag, opening in a ragged starburst just below his sternum. He's still screaming when loops of bowel, gray-pink and steaming faintly in the cold air, unspool out through the wound instead of in, snagged on the hooks and dragged loose as the creature backs off half a segment, feeding the mass of him into itself in slow, deliberate pulls. Amanda is the one who grabs Drea's arm hard enough to leave marks, hauling her the last 10 feet to the gap in the roll door. You don't look back at all. Can't. Won't. Some third thing that isn't quite either. The arithmetic in you refusing, for once, to give you the number. And that's the mercy of it, that you don't see the last part happen, only hear it. The wet, tearing rhythm of it working, and Marty's scream thinning down through something that isn't a scream anymore, into a sound with no good name, and then, before the door swallows you into the parking lot's freezing dark, nothing. You don't look back. You don't stop. Behind you, the loading bay goes quiet except for one small, patient, ongoing sound, the sound of something taking its time. The parking lot should be safety. Sodium light and flat orange pools, a chain link fence, 3 cars nobody thought to move before break. An ordinary, ugly human place, and for 3 strides it feels like enough. Amanda's already screaming directions nobody asked for. This way! This way! And Drea's hand is fisted in the back of your jacket like she thinks letting go is a kind of falling. Then the lights start going out. Not all at once, one at a time, from the loading bay backward, the way a hand closes finger by finger. Sodium glow swallowed into a wet dark that doesn't sit right against the concrete, that moves against the wind instead of with it. You don't look back. You've learned that much, but you hear it. No footsteps, because it doesn't have feet, just a long, dragging hiss like a garden hose pulled fast over gravel, segment over segment, closing the gap between the box it came out of and the girl 3 steps behind you. Go, go, go! Drea's voice cracks on the second go and doesn't finish the third. The dark reaches the last light above her head, and the bulb doesn't shatter, doesn't even flicker. It just stops being lit, like someone reached up and switched off the sun's understudy. And in that pocket of sudden black, something pale unspools out of the shadow at floor level, ringed and glistening, and far too long for how little space it needed to hide in, and it doesn't wrap around her ankle so much as thread through it. One smooth, segmented loop, cinching above the boot with the deliberate patience of a knot being tied by someone who has all night. Drea goes down hard, chin cracking pavement, and the sound she makes isn't a scream yet. It's surprise, a grunt, the animal what of a body registering wrongness before the mind catches up. Then the second loop finds her other leg and pulls, and there's no drag, no give, just a full body wrench backward across the asphalt that peels skin off her palms where she claws for purchase, and now she screams, and it's the real thing, the kind that comes from somewhere below language. You get maybe 4 more steps before you look. You shouldn't. You do anyway, because some part of you needs the arithmetic to finish, and for the first time all night, it doesn't. There's no number waiting on the other side of this one. The creature has her folded backward over its foremost ring, spine bent at an angle spines don't bend, and the ring beneath her opens. Not a mouth exactly, more a widening, a sphincter of pale tissue lined in concentric rows of hooked cartilage that rotate inward as it presses to her stomach. Her shirt goes first, then the skin under it, parting in a wet seam that doesn't so much cut as give. And what comes out of her in the sodium dark is dark too, and steaming faintly in the December cold, and the creature drinks it in with a sound like a drain finally clearing. Drea's hands are still moving. Her mouth is still shaping something that was probably a name. Then the ring closes another inch, and her spine does something final, and the sound she was making stops being a person's sound at all. Don't look. Don't you fucking look. Run! And there's a half beat where Amanda's voice isn't flat at all, isn't cataloging anything, is just a person screaming at another person to live. And then she's got your sleeve, hauling, and you go, because there is nothing left back there to save, and every second you spend confirming that is a second the dark has to decide it isn't finished collecting. You hit the chain link at a dead sprint, no thought for the height of it, palms finding cold galvanized metal that bites into your fingers, and you're up and over on adrenaline you'll be paying interest on for the rest of your life, dropping hard onto pavement that isn't the dorms, isn't the quads, isn't anything with a history you know yet. Amanda clears it a half second behind you and doesn't check to see if you landed clean. The parking lot shrinks behind you, orange light and moving shadow, smaller with every stride, until it isn't there at all. Just a street, an actual street, street lamps doing their ordinary, boring, beautiful job, a parked car with its alarm blinking uselessly at nothing, mundane and stupid and exactly what safety is supposed to look like. You run until your lungs make the decision for you, until the two of you are doubled over against a mailbox 4 blocks from a building neither of you will ever be able to walk past again. Behind you, blocks back now, past the fence and the lot and a door that was never built to hold anything, the last thing you hear before the city swallows every trace of it is a soft, satisfied hiss, segment folding into segment, settling in to feed. The lockdown alert came through at 11:43 p.m., and by 11:47,